千里之行，始于足下. A journey of 1,000 miles begins beneath the feet. We now gather in the Tao to travel the journey together. Welcome to Tao Talks with Derek Lin, where we delve deeply into the Daodejing by Lao Tzu. Let me pull up that slide, and then let me talk about Mencius a little bit. In Mandarin, Mencius is Mengzi, so the sound is quite different from Mencius. But then again, Confucius in Mandarin is Kongzi. That also sounds quite different. Both Mencius and Confucius were names, Latinized names given by the earliest missionaries from Europe to China. So this goes back probably hundreds of years. Let me talk about Mencius the sage. He lived about roughly 2,300 years ago. He was primarily known for using parables, analogies, and metaphors, and his purpose was to bring concepts to life, to explain Tao concepts in ways that would be easy to understand. He was often consulting with kings, rulers from one place to another, and he would use these parables to explain the Tao to them. His dialogue with these rulers were collected together in a book bearing his name. So Mencius was the sage. And there's Mencius the book. The pronunciation in Mandarin is the same. The sage in Mandarin is Mengzi. The book is one of the 4 books and 5 classics, and it is also called Mengzi. Let me show you what it looks like. You have seen this image before. If you follow the previous talks, I brought up the 4 books and 5 classics quite often in previous chapters. So the arrow that you see there, and first of all, I think it's obvious, 4 books and 5 classics, that's a total of 9 volumes, and that is what you see in the photo that you see here on my slide. The arrow points to the volume that is the book bearing the name of the sage. So if you take a look at the 2 characters there, they are vertically arranged, but if you set them horizontally, you get exactly these 2 characters here. So Mengzi said quite a bit in his various dialogues and conversations with the kings and rulers. And one of the examples specifically refers to this dichotomy between appearance and essence. Here's the text, the original text, drawn from Mengzi. Now, that's quite a bit of Chinese characters, I know, but don't worry, I will tell it to you as a story. So you will find it easy to understand, just like the ancient kings conversing with Mengzi. It is a parable that I called the bent finger. What is that? Well, it goes back to a conversation where Mencius said to one particular ruler, explaining a concept, Mengzi said, "Now, let me tell you about this particular fellow. Let me tell you about this particular man. This man had a minor problem. What was the problem? Well, the fourth finger in one of his hands was bent. He couldn't straighten it. He could not extend that finger to straighten it out. It's a problem that he's always had. Now, because all it is just a bent finger, it was not obvious, not an obvious problem. A lot of people around him did not know about the problem, didn't know he had this little issue. That bent finger that could not be straightened, while it didn't cause any pain, and although it might be a little inconvenient at times, it didn't really get in the way. Like, he could do whatever he wanted. He could still get things done. He could use the rest of his fingers. Didn't have a whole lot of problems. So it didn't stop him from doing anything. Although it was a permanent condition that he had, it wasn't something that came and went. It was not serious. It was not life-threatening in any way. So overall, the bent finger was really more like an annoyance to this man. Nevertheless, this man was rather self-conscious about the bent finger. Every time he saw other people's hands, it would remind him of his own little defect, a non-working, non-functional finger. He would often cover his hand or keep it out of sight intentionally, just so other people wouldn't catch sight of it and then realize that maybe something wasn't quite right. He wanted to avoid that. So he kept it out of sight. Once in a while, he would hear from other people about some famous doctor in distant lands, in other places, other kingdoms. And he would pay close attention to what was being described. He would listen to the description of this particular doctor's expertise and accomplishments in healing people. He wanted to especially learn about the doctors who would have the ability to fix this little problem for him so that the bent finger could be straightened again. If there was someone like that, maybe in a distant kingdom, who could fix his finger, he would not hesitate to go on a long trip just to see that doctor. He was quite willing, even kind of eager to travel any distance. And it was all because that one finger was, not quite the same as what other people had. Now, let's think about this. This is kind of interesting. Think about the fact that when one little finger was defective compared to the others, this man worried about it and was constantly thinking of ways to improve it or correct it. That is key. At the same time, if there was a problem in the mind, in the character or cultivation, and indeed, even if it was a big problem, notice how most people would not worry about it the same way that this man worried about that one bent finger. Most people would not think about it all the time. Oh my goodness, I have a slight defect in my character. Most people simply don't think that. And most people would not be seeking ways to correct it or improve it. In general, most people would not really mind. They may even say, well, that's just the way I am. What are you going to do? This, when you bring it in contrast with the man's attitude about the bent finger, showcases a common kind of ignorance. In this kind of ignorance, one places a lot more importance on the external appearance than the internal essence. Basically, this is about losing sight of the essential aspects of life while chasing after relatively unimportant matters in the material world. That is the parable provided by Mengzi, the sage Mencius. So this was used to explain the difference between the high-level person and the low-level person. The low-level person, similar to this man in the story, is fixated on appearance, would care about comparison with other people very much. So let's talk about that in a little more detail. First, the man in the story, the focus is on the external, on the appearance, the physical and material aspects of life. So this is exactly the kind of people that Lao Tzu said would laugh out loud upon encountering the Tao. That's low level. What about mid-level? What do you think? Mid-level individuals, they are a little better than the low-level individuals in that they will shift their focus to the internal once in a while. And the internal is unlike the physical and material, that's external. The internal is mental and spiritual. It's just that mid-level individuals never do it in a consistent way. Sometimes they do it, sometimes they forget. So what about high-level individuals? The high-level individual would be the opposite to the man in the story. As Mencius explains, high-level individuals are the ones who care about their internal states, who place that as a high level of importance, and therefore they constantly seek to improve themselves within. Indeed, there's one more point to add. High-level individuals focus on the internal, that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it that's equally important that Mencius didn't get around to explaining in that passage, but I'm going to tell you now and then come back to reinforce it later on. The internal improvement is often accomplished in the most ordinary activities in life. It's in the caring of other people. It's in the dedication that you have to something greater than yourself. It's in the everyday expressions of love, compassion, responsibility to others, such as your loved ones or your family. Please keep this in mind. Internal improvements is often done on a daily basis in ordinary activities. This is an important point. We will return to it. Our meeting has come to an end, but the journey continues on. Let us travel safely. Until next time, may the Tao fill you with peace and happiness.